My entire life, I schemed relentlessly to win Shen Hanzhou, only to become his perfect match in misery. He loved the impostor who stole my fortune and glory for over a decade. So he hated me for turning his childhood sweetheart into a fool, hated me even more for my countless crimes that brought ruin upon the entire Shen family. Yet in the end, it was he who knelt upon the jade steps, sacrificing his life to buy me a path to survival. He said, "Jiang Yan Yue, if time could be reversed, I would rather never have reached out to you that day." When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the year I was just reclaimed by the Ministry of Revenue. The man before me was still young and tender, his features gentle. Shen Han Zhou. This time, "I'll let you go." Main text. I stared at the faces before Mephises that should have long since faded from existence. A daze settled over me. My father and brothers, their expressions frantic, demanded, "Jiang Yan Yue, where have you hidden Ah Chan?" So this was the moment I had reincarnated into. The moment I lured Jiang Chan out of the mansion, hired a band of bandits, and schemed to rob her of her virtue. Ever since I was recognized and returned to the Jiang household, I had openly and covertly opposed Jiang Chan. Everyone witnessed it. Moreover, Jiang Chan's maid came forward to accuse me, claiming I had summoned her out. I returned unscathed. Yet Jiang Chan vanished. Who was responsible? It was obvious. In my past life, I insisted I knew nothing, that I'd merely gone out to play with Jiang Chan, only for her to vanish. When Jiang Chan was found, Shed not only lost her virtue but, traumatized by the ordeal, had become a simpleton. I never believed I'd done wrong. After all, hadn't Jiang Chan enjoyed years of luxury precisely because Shed usurped my place? I merely reclaimed what was mine. What wrong was there? As a child, I was stolen by enemies. Fearing my mother's grief, the household brought in a baby girl to take my place. Later, the enemy informed my mother that after stealing me, he had abandoned me, and I had long since entered the cycle of reincarnation. From that day on, my mother fell gravely ill and died in sorrow. In truth, I had been found and raised by a couple, but my adoptive father was a compulsive gambler, and my adoptive mother was weak and helpless. When I was 6, they sold me along with the jade pendant bearing the character Yan that had been in my swaddling cloth to a wealthy local family. I served as a maid in the Zhang household for many years. Eventually, for reasons unknown, they angered some powerful figure and were destroyed overnight. During a famine, while fleeing, I encountered a kind family distributing porridge. Their young miss was not only beautiful, with every gesture dignified and graceful, but also possessed a heart of compassion. Personally distributing aid outside the city, that was Jiang Chan. The matron by Jiang Chan's side recognized me almost immediately. I bore an uncanny resemblance to the late mistress, and I still wore the jade goose character token from my childhood. Only then did I realize I was not the maid Shui Xiaoyan. I was Jiang Yan Yue, the legitimate daughter of the Minister of Revenue. Though my father and brothers felt guilt toward me, they were not particularly close. Their focus had always been on Jiang Chan. Naturally, my heart ached. The only one who saw through the deception was Shen Hanzhou. On the day I returned home, everyone was preoccupied with whether Jiang Chan would be displeased. Only he approached me, extending his hand. "Is this little sister you? She's just as adorable as I imagined." It was probably then that the seed of obsession began to take root in my heart. In my past life, after Jiang Chan was found, I was still basking in the joy of marrying Shen Hanzhou, but I never imagined that when Shen Hanzhou came to propose, it was still for Jiang Chan. My eyes nearly popped out of my head. I couldn't tell if I was the one who had gone mad, or if Shen Hanzhou had. Jiang Chan had already lost her virtue. Even if he was willing to marry her, the Shen family would never allow her into their household. Why, then, would he defy the entire city's outrage to marry her? So, I drugged Shen Hanzhou, stripped off my clothes, lay beside him, and framed this noble gentleman of impeccable character for this scandalous affair. I forced Shen Hanzhou to marry me. Yet, after the wedding, he never once set foot in my courtyard. Only then did I realize he had always loved Jiang Yan, even though she was stained with shame. Even though she had descended into madness, I could never compare to her. Later, to clear myself of framing Jiang Yan, I colluded with assassins from the Heavenly Mechanics Pavilion, intending to eliminate that nest of bandits. Years later, I never imagined the Heavenly Mechanics Pavilion would collude with foreign powers. The flames spread from me, engulfing the Shen residence. Even more unforeseen was Shen Hanzhou kneeling with my father and brothers upon the jade steps of the imperial palace, taking full responsibility for all the crimes. The male members of the Jiang and Shen families were sentenced to decapitation, while the women folk were enslaved as state servants. My final encounter with Shen Hanzhou occurred within the prison walls. I raged at him, demanding, "Why did you save me? Didn't you hate and despise me? Wouldn't betraying me have appeased the emperor's wrath? Why did you save me? Shen Hanzhou, tell me, did you ever love me too?" He looked utterly wretched. Yet he smiled, his face filled with pity as he gazed at me. "Do you know why Ah Chan went mad?" I stared at him blankly. Of course I knew no one knew better than I. Yet he said, "After she was bound, her maid shielded her from the bandits, buying her time to escape. But she ran back on her own. Do you know why? Because she thought you were still there." Those words struck like a thunderbolt. She thought you were still there. She ran back to save you, and willingly endured humiliation to save you. You thought you handled it so no one would ever know, right? But you didn't expect one of those men to survive. He revealed your involvement. Ah Chan suffered trauma. Her mind shattered like that of a 6-year-old child. When I asked for her hand in marriage that day, it was to atone for your sins and for my own. I shook my head numbly. No. That can't be true. You must be lying to me. You must be lying. Shen Hanzhou looked at me, a bitter smile on his face. Jiang Yan Yue, if only time could be turned back. I wish I had never reached out to you that day. Seeing my prolonged silence, Father raised his hand and struck me hard across the face. "If anything happens to Ah Chan, I will never let you off the hook." That was when Shen Hanzhou arrived. Hearing Jiang Yan was missing, his expression betrayed deep anxiety. "Little you, tell me where you took Akan. If a momentary sisterly quarrel leads to a grave mistake, it would be terrible." Hearing Shen Hanzhou's voice, I nearly broke down in tears. "I know where she is." I had no reason left to harm Jiang Yan. Even if she were buried without a proper grave, Shen Hanzhou would still marry her spirit tablet. Wouldn't he? They found Jiang Yan without much trouble. This time, even her protective maid only suffered superficial injuries. For a moment, everyone gathered around Jiang Yan, as if they'd recovered a long-lost treasure, watching Shen Hanzhou beside her, breathing a long sigh of relief. A faint ache tugged at my heart. "Shen Hanzhou, if I could let go of my obsession with you, in this lifetime, might you live 100 years. Jiang Yan was the first to notice my gaze. She ran toward me, her voice thick with lingering fear. "Ah, you. Thank goodness you ran out in time and rushed home to warn us. That's how I escaped danger." At these words, everyone fell silent. My father, brother, and Shen Hanzhou's faces were filled with guilt. They seemed to regret having so easily blamed me earlier. Momentarily at a loss, Jiang Yan noticed their reactions and hurriedly explained for me. She claimed we'd gone to the temple together, unexpectedly encountered thugs, and that my quick thinking had saved her. She spoke with absolute conviction. I burst into laughter, startling everyone. But as I laughed, my vision gradually blurred. What a fool! She didn't realize she'd nearly plunged into an abyss of no return. And here she was, still desperately defending the very culprit. In both past and present lives, I'd lost to this foolish woman, for days on end. I shut myself away. Father and brothers assumed my gloom stemmed from that day's humiliation. They even sent numerous gifts to my courtyard. In my past life, I tried desperately to fit in with them, yet never received such treatment. So, it seems merely saving Jiang Chan was enough to win their favor. My elder brother even sent several exquisitely crafted mechanical toys. A wild goose spread its wings, lifelike and vivid. I offered a faint thank you. My brother scratched his nose, slightly taken aback, remarking that I'd been a bit too compliant lately. I sneered inwardly, not to brag. If I ever decided to stir trouble, you lot wouldn't even get a coffin. A few days later, the eldest princess sent invitations to all the noble houses, inviting them to a flower viewing banquet. Such banquets were always prime opportunities for networking and forming alliances. Jiang Chan chattered away beside me while I quietly observed the nobles and officials. His Majesty had 3 sons, the crown prince, the 3rd prince, and the 7th prince. Among them, only the 7th prince remained unmarried. Already enfeoffed as Prince of Ning, he would soon depart for his fiefdom. This flower viewing banquet was likely arranged for him. The 7th prince, Xiao Ji, possessed exquisite beauty, feminine features, and a manan was of the highest royal lineage. Yet few noble families in the capital desired to marry their daughters to him. This was because his mother, once the emperor's most favored consort, belonged to the Gu family. That family had become embroiled in a treasonous plot, attempting to replace the emperor. The emperor had exterminated the entire Gu clan, sparing only Xiaoxi out of past affection. Moreover, though the 7th prince was handsome, he was a thorough wastrel, spending his days intoxicated by mechanical devices and jade carvings, hardly a suitable husband. Thus, no one could have imagined that Xiaoxi would ultimately ascend the throne. I casually made up an excuse to send Jiang Chan away, seeking a secluded spot, only to unexpectedly run into Shen Hanzhou. The man before me hadn't yet acquired the composure of his later years. He still carried a youthful awkwardness. Only his eyes remained as gentle as ever, unchanged. When I was a maid in the Zhang household as a child, I heard the wealthy young masters say, "Love is pity. If someone begins to pity you, it means they are falling in love with you." So, I wanted Shen Hanzhou to pity me. Wasn't I pitiable? My family had all been snatched away by Jiang Chan. Besides, Jiang Chan was proper enough, but dull-witted. I was far more interesting than her. Shen Hanzhou's eyes gradually filled with me. I thought, as long as I had Shen Hanzhou, I could do without anyone else. But Shen Hanzhou was a good man. His pity was truly just pity. Yet he got entangled with this pile of rotten dog shit that is me. Such a good, compassionate person shouldn't have met this fate. I spoke harshly to you before. These past days, you've kept yourself locked indoors, and I haven't had a chance to apologize. It took me a while to recall that harsh remark when he furrowed his brow and asked me where Jiang Chan was. I thought to myself, you didn't even scratch the surface. Usually I was the one initiating conversation. But today's sudden silence clearly unsettled Shen Hanzhou. He could only say, "In a few days, I plan to come and propose marriage." My heart fluttered uncontrollably. Perhaps this was for the best. Hadn't I known the moment I let go of my obsession, everything should return to its proper course. That is very good. Shen Hanzhou's ears flushed crimson, but I had no mind to admire the sight. I merely said my maid was waiting for me. I had barely hidden behind the rockery, still trying to steady my emotions, when a dagger pressed silently against my lower back. Xiaoxi's deep voice echoed from behind. "Miss Jiang, you have quite the nerve, daring to bargain with a tiger. I have my own connections. Your Highness need only decide whether you wish to cooperate with me." I showed no fear, turning to flick his dagger aside. Inwardly, I couldn't help but scoff. You call yourself a tiger. Right now, you're barely a rabbit. A few days prior, I delivered a letter to Xiaoxi. It stated I knew the whereabouts of the person he sought. This individual wasn't just his target, the Crown Prince and Third Prince were also searching for him. Thus, though Xiaoxi remained wary, he dared only to intimidate me. not risk harming me rashly. That person was crucial to him. He couldn't afford to gamble. Xiaoxi's almond-shaped eyes narrowed. The playful charm that had graced his gaze while admiring the flowers vanished without a trace, replaced by a glint of ruthlessness. It was a look that gradually overlapped with that of the frail emperor from my past life. "What do you want?" he demanded. "I know your highness is no ordinary man. I'm betting on your victory." Xiaoxi sneered coldly. "The Jiang family serves the third prince, yet you're certain it'll prevail." Truthfully, Shen Hanzhou had been right in his past life. He sought to save his own womenfolk hands since I happened to be among them. He grew overly sentimental. The annihilation of the Shen and Jiang families stemmed from the third prince's failure to outmaneuver the crown prince. The heavenly mechanics pavilion was merely the spark. This time, I latched onto the right powerful ally early on. The Jiang and Shen families wouldn't have to repeat their mistakes. I didn't answer Xiaoxi's question. Instead, I said, "You may not trust me, to prevent me from leaking information. You could kill me right here, but I dare say I'm the only one in this world who can lead you to that person. If you kill me, you'll surely regret it." I met his gaze with a hint of provocation. Having faced death once, my words carried far more conviction now. Xiaoxi hesitated, lowering his eyelashes as if weighing his options. "Come to think of it, the last person I saw in my previous life was Xiaoxi. Back then, I worked as a menial laborer in the laundry bureau. While daydreaming, I hummed a Jiang Yan folk tune I'd learned when I was still a maid in the mansion. That was the first time I saw Xiaoxi. Only later did I learn that this man of such striking beauty was the new emperor they spoke of, brutal, tyrannical, and a ruthless killer. Xiaoxi said his childhood wet nurse often sang this very song. Only the melody was different. I smiled and explained it was a lullaby from the south, often sung by substituting the name of the child in the song, naturally creating a different tune each time. After that, Xiaoxi often came to see me when his headaches flared. Only that lullaby could bring him some relief. He shared many more stories about himself with me. His entire journey to this day had been driven by vengeance for his mother. Yet in pursuit of that vengeance, many people dear to him had died. To avenge those deaths, more people perished. A cycle that repeated itself, over and over. Only after ascending the throne and looking back did he understand what it meant to stand atop a mountain devoid of others. To be a lonely ruler. Xiaoxi summoned me to his presence. He needed nothing from me, only to hear me sing and have me prepare another plate of those sickeningly sweet pastries. His days were numbered. Beneath the splendid robes lay a frail, diseased body. Yet unexpectedly, I met my end slightly before him. Xiaoxi's harem remained empty, drawing the eyes of noble families. Because of his favor, I became the target of their schemes. A cup of poisoned wine ended my foolish life. I still remember before I died, Xiaoxi rushing toward me, his eyes filled with terror. At that moment, I thought, how pitiful. He was the ruler of the realm, plotting and scheming to the end. Yet in the end, he was just like me, never obtaining what he truly desired. "I agree," I said, "but as an unmarried daughter of the Jiang family, how can you lead me to that person?" His words snapped me back to reality. Xiaoxi seemed to have finally made up his mind. Every step he took was fraught with difficulty. But in this life, with me by his side, perhaps he would suffer a little less. I'd already made up my mind days ago. If I married Xiaoxi, he'd soon depart for his fiefdom, which would naturally facilitate my actions. But the Jiang family belonged to the third prince's faction. Though not overwhelmingly powerful in court, they held considerable influence. Marrying him rashly regardless of whether my family would consent would be far too conspicuous. It would inevitably draw the attention of both the crown prince and the third prince. So, I devised a plan. Nothing offers a better escape than becoming a dead person. After the flower viewing banquet concluded, I once again shut myself away. It was Jiang Chan who began pestering me daily. One day, Shen Hanzhou arrived to discuss matters with my father. In a rare act of kindness, I served Jiang Yan a plate of pastries. Noticing her distracted and restless state, I suggested a stroll in the garden. Jiang Yan hesitated for a long while before asking if I knew why Shen Hanzhou had come today. Of course I know. He came to propose marriage. In my previous life. It was also on this day that he came to ask for Jiang Chan's hand. Jiang Chan's tense body instantly slumped, revealing a relieved smile. So you knew. Ill bless you both. I wondered if she'd gone mad again in this life. Jiang Yan noticed my bewilderment and asked. Don't you know brother Hanzhou came to propose to you? I froze in place, blurting out. Why would Shen Hanzhou marry me? What about you? This marriage was meant for you in the first place. Besides, brother Hanzhou doesn't like me. Her voice trailed off, ending in a bitter laugh. Besides, I don't want to marry anyone at all. I'd much rather wander the world and see what's out there. Her dejected expression made me laugh in exasperation. Jiang Yan, you're not just giving me a handout, are you? Thinking you're doing me a favor by letting me have Shen Hanzhou. Huh. Jiang Yan stared at me blankly, shaking her head hastily. I didn't mean that. I grabbed her frail shoulders, glaring at her fiercely. You already owe me. Whether I want you or not is my business. I don't need your pity. With your cluelessness, you want to travel the world. You'd get sold before even leaving the manor gates. Jiang Yan was on the verge of tears after my barrage of insults. I realized I truly despised her. I reached out and shoved her into the garden pond. In Jiang Yan's terrified eyes, I heard myself whisper. I hate you, but you'd be wise to stay this naive forever. I pushed Jiang Yan into the water without hiding it from anyone. The maid screamed and jumped in to save her. Hearing the commotion, everyone from the front courtyard rushed over. I had no defense for my actions. Father trembled with rage, pointing his finger at me and cursing. Your mother kind and virtuous her entire life, how could she bear such a vicious daughter? They must have thought Jiang Yan was more like her mother than I ever was. But what choice did I have? I never even met my birth mother. How could I know what a good person she was? Shen Han's eyes were filled with disappointment as he looked at me. Little Moon, why did you do this? He probably regretted it again. But what choice did I have? I was reborn at this very moment. Had it been earlier, I would have granted his wish, preferring wed never met. Why? I laughed. A hollow laugh. Because I hate you all. Jiang Yan is a wealthy young lady, a noble woman. When she picked her maidservants, did any of you ever think about how many years I spent as one? When she gave charity, did you ever think about how I fought dogs for scraps? You knew all along that I tricked Jiang Yan out that day, didn't you? But you kept quiet to spare her feelings, pretending everything was joyful. It just made me sick. I hate every single one of you. Why did you give her everything that should have been mine? Why did she get affection, while I only got guilt? A wave of heat washed over my face. Yet I felt a strange sense of relief in my chest. Words I'd bottled up for 2 lifetimes unexpectedly poured out. No one spoke. This was an impossible knot. Father sighed, ordering me confined to my bedroom until Jiang Yan awoke to decide my fate. I dismissed everyone. The dessert Jiang Yan ate had been laced enough to keep her asleep for a while. Sitting alone in this elegant bedroom, I faintly recalled the joy I felt upon first entering it. In the darkness, a candle flared to life. Then, I pushed it over with my hand. On the other side of the Jiang residence, Jiang Yan had been saved in time, yet she remained unconscious. Everyone, weighed down by the earlier words, wore gloomy expressions. My elder brother spoke first. Even if she harbors resentment, how could she possibly wish to kill her own sister? Father sighed. If we speak of right and wrong, we have erred far more. Her heart is too sensitive. How could she not sense the distance between us? It is I who have wronged her, driving a wedge between these sisters. It was at this moment that Jiang Yan slowly regained consciousness. Her first words upon opening her eyes were, "Where is you?" Her brother, both angry and heartbroken, snapped, You still care about her. She certainly doesn't care about you. Jiang Chan began to weep. No. You must have had some unspoken hardship. I always felt she didn't truly wish to harm me. She looked so sorrowful back then. Go find her at once. I must hear her explanation face to face. Her brother sighed, pressing his hand to his forehead. Your kindness is what let her take advantage of you. Just then, a sudden commotion erupted outside. Someone shouted, "Fire! Fire!" Everyone startled, rushing to their feet to look outside. The source of the sky-filling flames was none other than the courtyard of the second young miss of the mansion. Xiaoxi still hadn't married his consort, but he was an unloved prince to begin with, and just days ago had incurred the emperor's displeasure. Suspecting he deliberately delayed marriage to stay in the capital, the emperor banished him to his fiefdom. After all, once a prince was in theft and left the capital, he was effectively removed from the succession race. Inside the carriage, Xiaoxi closed his eyes to rest. His guard, however, clearly disliked me. I've never seen a woman so audacious. To have our master steal a corpse into the Jiang residence to aid your deception. Do you realize this act will strip you of your status as the Jiang heiress? To go this far, could it be you've set your sights on our master, hoping to become his concubine? Even Xiaoxi, a man of such steadfast temperament, was stung by these words. Only then did I turn my gaze to Guju. In my past life, I had never seen him. I'd only heard bits and pieces from Xiaoxi. Guju was the guard his uncle had left him, though he was actually his cousin. Sadly, he had died young. Miss Jiang, I have no desire to pry into why you left the Jiang household, but I have fulfilled my promise to you. You must fulfill yours to me. Xiaoxi slowly opened his eyes, a flash of grim resolve flickering within them. I waved my hand without a trace of guilt. Of course. Let's go fetch her now. I led Xiaoxi through winding country lanes, taking wrong turns several times. Guju nearly drew his sword in frustration, accusing me outright of deceiving them. Then, a dilapidated thatched cottage suddenly came into view. I gestured to Xiaoxi, signaling him to knock. An old woman opened the door. Her face was hideously disfigured, nearly half of it destroyed. Her eyes were cloudy and vacant, her gaze fixed and dull. Yet at the very sight of this old woman, Xiaoxi froze stiff, his eyes brimming with tears. He whispered, "Grandma Wen." The old woman ignored him completely, showing no reaction to the name. Her cloudy gaze passed over Xiaoxian. When it landed on me, held a moment of clarity. Her voice was mocking yet warm. "Is it Yan?" I had known Auntie Wen from my days as a maid in the Zhang household. Back then, though, we didn't call her Auntie Wen. We called her Ugly Granny. Ugly Granny wasn't just ugly. She was often out of her mind. The steward took pity on her, giving her a place to stay and assigning her menial tasks. They kept her locked away to prevent her from offending the noble guests. I was the youngest when I entered the household. Though my foster parents weren't kind to me, I still longed for home. Ugly Granny was the one who cared for me most in the mansion. Whenever she looked at me, she'd have moments of clarity. She said she once had a little master who'd fuss at night and refuse to sleep, so she'd sing to lull him. As a maid in Central Plains, I'd never heard the folk tunes of Jiangnan. Ugly Granny taught them to me, and those sweet sugar pastries. She taught me how to make those too. She said her little master loved them most. Later, as the household scattered, I lost track of her during our flight. In my past life, Xiaoxi searched for her relentlessly, but with half her face disfigured and the 2 red moles on her hands cauterized to conceal her identity. Add to that her worsening madness. How could anyone find her? By the time Xiaoxi finally tracked her down, she was raving mad, with only days left to live. Of course, Xiaoxi wasn't the only one searching for her. During the palace coup, Nanny Wen narrowly escaped death, clutching evidence proving the current empress had framed Xiaoxi's mother. Thus, everyone hunted her some for the proof, others to silence her. Later, Xiaoxi used this evidence to clear his mother's name, staging a brilliant comeback. He brought Nanny Wen back to his side. Late at night, I used the lamplight to adjust the knee pads I'd just finished sewing on the porch. Having once been a maid, I still possessed the basic skills. But after living 2 lifetimes past and present long immersed in a life untouched by household chores, my hands had grown unsteady. The knee pads turned out crooked and rather unattractive. Xiaoxi's father was hardly a decent man, abandoning his son to this bitterly cold place. But in this life, I still hoped Xiaoxi would hold the throne a little longer. I couldn't let him develop another set of ailments. When Xiaoxi emerged from the room, his eyes were red-rimmed. I was accustomed to seeing him listless and dejected. I hadn't realized the young man possessed such a vivid, living side. Nanny Wen didn't recognize Xiaoxi, likely because he bore little resemblance to the young master she remembered. Still, she wasn't beyond hope. One day, she would remember. Nanny once told me stories about her time in the palace. So that's how I learned of her identity and your affairs. I spun a tale for Xiaoxi. He would likely never know that everything about him was actually told to me by his own mouth. But thankfully, with Nanny Wen around, the matter was smoothly resolved. Gu Zhu's expression changed dramatically. He knew better than anyone how important Nanny Wen was to Xiaoxi. Miss Jiang, I apologize for my earlier rudeness. I hope you'll be magnanimous and not hold it against me. I forced a smile and said with great generosity. Ah. After such a long journey, my whole body aches. If only I had some hot water for a bath. Gu Zhu instantly caught the hidden meaning in my words and hurried off to boil water. Under the faint moonlight, I leaned against the wall, watching Xiaoxi's slightly lonely figure, and began humming that Jiangnan folk tune again. After a long while, I heard him whisper softly, "Thank you." His words scattered in the wind. With the provincial government divided and ruled, Prince Xiaoxi held only a nominal title. Even a mighty dragon cannot overpower a local tyrant, let alone an unloved imperial prince. In his past life, Xiaoxi endured much hardship before stirring the murky waters of his fiefdom. During those days I shut myself away. I strained to recall the major events destined to unfold in the coming years. Grain prices, land values, all would be swayed by these pivotal moments. Armed with such knowledge, how could profit elude me? With money to be made, who wouldn't want to join in? When others perceive your worth, invitations naturally follow. Before long, Xiaoxi had become well connected with the provincial officials. Another winter arrived. Heavy snow weighing down the bamboo outside the window. Xiaoxi donned his newly tailored black fox fur cloak, leaning over his desk as his slender fingers danced across the paper with his brush. As if finally unable to bear my gaze, he lifted his head and asked, "How much longer do you intend to watch?" Whenever I saw him in this prim and proper manner, I couldn't resist teasing him. "Your Highness is so handsome. Why won't you let people look?" Back in the capital, I heard many women were crushed to death just to catch a glimpse of you. Xiaoxi's ears grew even redder. I felt he was somewhat ashamed of his reputation as a playboy in the capital. Reputation. After a long pause, he finally managed a nonsensical retort. "No woman ever came to see me. That's all nonsense. Even if they did, I never looked at them." I gave a half-hearted response, my thoughts drifting far away. At this point in my past life, Xiaoxi's beauty had sparked a major incident. Commander Zhou Mo, with his fondness for beauty regardless of gender. In my past life, it was by submitting to him that Xiaoxi finally breached the impenetrable defenses of the fiefdom. That frail figure surfaced again in my mind. What had Xiaoxi been thinking back then? I'd probably never know, because in this life, he wouldn't have to repeat that path. I would enter the game myself. Banquets for high-ranking officials and nobles were frequent occurrences. For convenience, I occasionally disguised myself as Xiaoxi's concubine and accompanied him to these gatherings. Zhou Mo's gaze fell upon me once more. He had hinted many times before, urging me to follow him. I had always refused. But this time, he threatened me with Xiaoxi. Prince Ning seems to be thriving in his fiefdom. Those two in the capital are locked in fierce combat. Surely they wouldn't want to become the prey while the predator lurks behind. As soon as the banquet ended, Zhou Mo pulled me away. Xiaoxi seized my hand. His gaze fixed on Zhou Mo, his brows furrowing. Zhou Mo, however, showed no fear. Your Highness, are you being so petty? Miss Yan has agreed. Can't you bear to part with her? I obediently nodded, then slipped the handkerchief into his palm while Xiaoxi stared in shock. Zhou Mo was eager, but I insisted he return to the mansion first. He just thought I was shy. That greenhorn Xiaoxi wouldn't know how to cherish you. You're better off flying into my palm. Little wild goose. Follow me, and you'll have endless riches and glory. Xiaoxi is nothing but a pretty face with a few petty tricks up his sleeve. I covered my face with a smile, and Zhou Mo eagerly leaned in. The next moment, the haze in his eyes froze, replaced by sheer terror. You. I kicked his rigid body aside, twisted the dagger lodged in his chest, then yanked it out with a violent jerk. Zhou Mo crashed to the ground, blood splattering across my face. I spat on his body, a smirk curling my lips. Truly a rotten man, even his blood stinks. Zhou Mo, born of thugs and ruffians, acted with arrogant tyranny, making countless enemies. And yet, he remained utterly deluded. He still didn't know. He was the one out of the game. Xiaoxi stood outside the door, his guards already surrounding the place so tightly not a soul could slip through. Zhou Mo is dead. Your Highness may now place your own men inside. Surely the prefect won't refuse such a minor request. In the Zhou residence's secret chamber, there are various beauties imprisoned by Zhou Mo. Among them is one named Jiang Yan, who could be put to good use. He would have met Xiaoxi at the Zhou residence and later become Xiaoxi's right-hand man. That was precisely why I had to come. If others struck first, wouldn't that cost Xiaoxi a key ally? Yet Xiaoxi stood motionless. In the flickering firelight, his face shifted between shadow and light, taking on an eerie, ghostly quality. But when he looked at Zhou Mo, his voice was utterly certain. You hate him. I froze. After returning, I fell into a high fever. In a bizarre, surreal dream, I saw Xiaoxi relentlessly interrogating me. Do you hate Zhou Mo? Why? His eyes are filled with nothing but hatred. Did you know him before? I felt I was close to understanding. Why would I hate him? But in the blink of an eye, I saw Jiang Chan, Shen Hanzhou, my father, my elder brother. Their heads fell one after another. Blood flowed like a river. Half asleep, half awake, someone tirelessly wiped my face. He murmured softly, what could possibly be worth this? Yan, can you tell me? I heard myself utter faintly. Shen Hanzhou. The warm hands on my face froze instantly. In the blink of an eye, 5 years had passed since I left the capital. Within the city, the third prince and the crown prince were locked in a bitter struggle, both seemingly intent on mutual destruction. Naturally, Xiaoxi and I did our part to stir the pot. The court was in turmoil. The evidence of the Gu family's murder had finally reached the emperor's desk. The emperor secretly summoned Xiaoxi back to the capital. In my past life, Gu Ju died at this very moment. On the journey back, Xiaoxi fell into an ambush. Though Gu Ju possessed formidable martial arts skills, he took a blade for Xiaoxi and received no timely medical attention. Xiaoxi and I weighed our options. Our trail had likely been compromised. It was best to avoid the original route. Xiaoxi and I took a back road. Gu Ju led a squad of elite soldiers along another path, feigning an escort for Xiaoxi. Yet, unexpectedly, we fell into another trap. Fortunately, the forces assigned to the side paths were sparse, but in protecting me, Xiaoxi was struck by an arrow. I carried him all the way to a remote inn. We thought the danger had passed. Once Xiaoxi recovered somewhat, we could set out to storm back to the capital. Unexpectedly, a group suddenly came searching the inn. They came with ill intent. I immediately instructed Xiaoxi, You've regained some strength. If things turn bad, escape through the window at once. I'll hold them off up front. Xiao Ji, still pale, clutched me tightly. I want leave. I want abandon you alone. His stubbornness made me laugh in exasperation. Xiao Ji, what kind of heroics are you trying to pull now? Do you think you're just yourself? How many people stand behind you? Gu the guard. Nanny Wen. Zhang Wen. Xiao Ji's grip tightened. Why? Don't you count yourself among them? He lifted his head, his eyes burning with sorrow so intense it felt like a flame. My heart clenched. Xiao Ji, why must you still wear this expression in this lifetime? Can you tell me why you came to my side? Why do you always stare at me blankly? You look at me, yet it's as if you're seeing someone else. But I and Shen Hanzhou, we're nothing alike. Ian, please let me die with clarity. I covered his mouth, sighing helplessly. I never knew you could be so clingy and spoiled, as sharp as Xiao Ji is. How could he not notice my unusual state? I sighed, pressing my forehead against his. My voice hushed. Once you ascend the throne, I'll tell you, I believe you will win. I did 5 years ago, and I still do now. At that moment, the inn's flimsy door was violently pounded. I rose, pulled my veil over my face, and opened the door. My palms grew slightly sweaty as I forced myself to steady my nerves. Lifting my gaze, my eyes met a pair that felt impossibly familiar. It was Shen Hanzhou. The moment Shen Hanzhou saw me, he froze in place, after years apart. Seeing this face again felt like encountering someone from another lifetime. If Shen Hanzhou had come, it meant the mastermind behind this was the third prince. I lowered my gaze, quickly formulating a plan. May I ask what brings you gentlemen here? If it were merely a resemblance in features, how could even his voice be so strikingly similar? Shen Han's hand trembled as he reached to remove my veil. The moment his fingers touched me, I flinched as if startled, jerking my head away. When I looked at him again, my eyes burned with indignation. What do you think you're doing, sir? I am the wife of an honorable family. I absolutely cannot tolerate such reckless behavior from your excellency. His attendants frowned, about to intervene. But Shen Hanzhou stopped them. My apologies for my rashness. It's just that the lady bears a striking resemblance to someone from my past. Of course she did. Would the lady permit me to take a closer look? I frowned, cutting him off sharply. What will you demand of me next? After making me lower my veil, though I am but a frail woman, I won't be deceived by flimsy excuses or have my reputation trampled. The body found at the estate had been chosen to match my frame, though charred black as coal. It wore the jewelry and ornaments I habitually adorned. Even that jade token with the wild goose character was on her. No one knew better than Shen Hanzhou that his old friend had long since passed away. His attendants seized the moment. We're here looking for someone. How could a woman like you be here alone? Is there a man in the room? My eyes widened. Tears streamed down my cheeks as I flung the door open. My maid merely went to fetch water. If you doubt me, search the room yourselves. How dare you slander me? I'd rather die cleanly. My words struck Shen Han's heart. His form nearly faltered as he barked at his men to withdraw. Nothing here. Search elsewhere. A weight lifted from my heart. All these years, he hadn't changed a bit. Still so easy to manipulate. Shen Han's face was now flushed with shame. His cheeks slightly reddened. A flash of pain in his eyes. Forgive me. It was only because your features and voice bore a passing resemblance to an old acquaintance of mine that I rashly offended you. I beg your pardon. I was merely missing her too much. After Xiao Ji and I returned to the capital, the political winds shifted dramatically. The Empress and Crown Prince had grown so powerful they had long aroused the Emperor's suspicion. Now, using the pretext of persecuting loyal officials, he deposed both the Empress and the Crown Prince. The third prince suddenly found himself in the limelight, seemingly poised to claim the throne. Yet, Unexpectedly, his reign was short-lived. His covert recruitment of troops, embezzlement, and abuse of power were exposed one after another. The third prince racked his brain in vain, unable to fathom how his most deeply hidden secrets had materialized as damning lists laid out before his father's desk. It was as if his underwear had been stripped bare. Some details were even clearer than he himself had known. Enraged, the emperor fell gravely ill. He posthumously honored Shaoxi's mother as empress and appointed Shaoxi as crown prince, entrusting him with regency. Only then did everyone realize how long Shaoxi had been lying in wait. The emperor's illness worsened. Upon discovering his beloved third son had poisoned him, he coughed up more blood. Before long, the emperor passed away. Shaoxi ascended the throne. Amidst the tumultuous power shift, everyone in the court felt their position was precarious. Naturally, this included the Jiang and Shen families. The new emperor settled scores and bestowed rewards. As former supporters of the third prince, a sharp blade hung perpetually over their heads, its fall unpredictable. When I carried the imperial edict home, an inexplicable wave of homesickness washed over me. It was a feeling I hadn't even experienced when I was first recognized and brought back to the Ministry of Ceremonies. Guilt or parental affection, none of it mattered anymore. In my previous life, they had ultimately spared my life. I owed them repayment. When I arrived, my father, brothers, and Shen Hanzhou stood at the main gate. Shen Han's his gaze flickered with surprise and doubt when he saw me. You are. His shock was understandable. After all, just 2 months prior, he had seen me in this very disguise. I drew a deep breath in, under everyone's gaze, lifted my veil. Shaoxi had been exceptionally busy lately, not only with administrative duties, but also with anger. I asked considerately, "Why is your highness so angry?" He snorted coldly and flung the memorial he held onto the table. Over the years, he had grown significantly taller, his features gaining a touch of sternness. When unsmiling, he truly carried an air of authority. I hear Shen Hanzhou fell gravely ill after seeing you that day. Now that he's awake, he's writing memorials begging me to grant him a marriage with you. I raised an eyebrow in surprise, so that was the reason. Oh, and did your highness agree? Shaoxi looked at me as if I were a fool. Then, as if recalling something, his expression darkened further. Considering proximity and closeness, Minister Jiang naturally holds greater weight. I must consult you before making a decision, otherwise, wouldn't that be meddling in matchmaking? I seldom saw him in such a sarcastic mood, and I couldn't resist the urge to tease him. It is a matter of great importance after all. I must discuss it with Brother Shen before deciding. Since I have an appointment with him today, I shall take my leave now. Shaoxi froze upon hearing this, his eyes widening in surprise. He couldn't believe I'd accepted so readily, and left in such a hurry. But today, I wasn't going to see Shen Hanzhou. I was going to see Jiang Chan. Last time I delivered the imperial edict to the Jiang residents, I only met them briefly. The courtyard I burned down had been rebuilt, its furnishings and decorations identical to how they were before I left. Only the small wooden carving of a wild goose at the bedside, clearly the work of an amateur, showed a roughness in every detail. Father and brother both had tears in their eyes, as if they had much to say. But I didn't know what to say. I said we'd meet another day. That next time for sure. Then yesterday, I received news from Jiang Chan. This time, she truly intended to travel the 4 seas. I'm sorry. Jiang Chan lowered her head, her eyelashes trembling slightly. I didn't understand why she was apologizing to me. Truthfully, when you burned yourself to death that day, I felt a strange sense of relief. My eyebrows shot up, almost convinced I'd misheard. I thought then that if you were dead, Brother Hanzhou would marry me. But then I realized Brother Hanzhou loved you. Even without you, he would never marry me. I think I finally understand what you meant when you said you hated me that day. This must be what that feels like. After speaking She forced a relieved smile, yet it looked uglier than tears. The room fell silent. She stood there like a prisoner awaiting sentencing. Waiting for my verdict. I never imagined Jiang Chan could harbor such thoughts. My body erupted in uncontrollable laughter. The maids in the room thought I was losing my mind again. Truthfully, it was I who felt the greatest release. Finally, I've caught you. I knew you couldn't possibly be as good as they say, as pure and flawless as they claim. At those words, Jiang Chan's face flushed crimson. Her hands fumbled awkwardly across her cheeks, as if one more word from me would drive her to shamefully smash her head against the wall. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I've been so wicked. How can I make it up to you? Me. As expected. There's no point talking to someone like this. I pulled out a jade token engraved with a wild goose character and tossed it into her lap. Jiang Chan stared at me blankly. Didn't you say you wanted to travel the world? You think you can traverse the mountains and rivers with your useless maids and a few palace guards? I've assigned some men to protect you in secret. Keep that token safe. I'll shield you if anything happens. Jiang Chan's eyes sparkled as she stared at the jade token. Then she jumped up and hugged me. Aw, you. Thank you for sending men to protect me. You're so kind to me. The scent of magnolia blossoms drifted from her hair, lingering at my nose, refusing to dissipate. I pushed her away with disdain, snorting coldly. Humph. It's just because I'm afraid something might happen to you. Then I'd have to go looking for you anyway. This time, I truly felt defeated. Words really shouldn't be spoken carelessly. I'd finally wrangled my way out of my father and elder brother's clutches. But the moment I stepped outside, I ran straight into Shen Hanzhou. He was dressed lightly, his complexion pale, likely from lingering illness. His jet black hair was loosely pinned up with a jade hairpin. Strands falling loosely at his neck clearly had rushed here. For whom was obvious. I glanced up at the light snow drifting from the sky and offered a well-meaning reminder. I hear you've only just recovered from a serious illness. Lord Shen, you really should take care of yourself. Shen Hanzhou forced a smile. Thank you for your concern, little moon. I gave a slight nod, intending to leave, but Shen Hanzhou called out to me, little moon, if in this lifetime, I were the one to remember everything first, would our ending be different? My body faltered slightly, as if something within my chest were slowly collapsing, yet it felt like a weight had been lifted. Shen Hanzhou was a moon that once shone upon me. Alas, he was a full moon. There was no room for me to intrude. I turned back to look at him. Shen Hanzhou, haven't we already changed? This lifetime, we did not become bitter lovers, tormenting each other. The people we cared about didn't die. Snowflakes landed on his long lashes, melted by his warmth, then slid slowly down. Yes, his expression remained unchanged, a faint smile playing at the corners of his mouth, revealing no emotion. Shen Hanzhou thought. She loved the gentle glow the moon cast upon her, but perhaps she never truly loved the moon itself. When I returned to the palace, I found Shaoxi pacing in the study. His peripheral vision caught me, and he immediately sat down, pretending to read a book, completely unaware he was holding it upside down. Then, as if by accident, he asked, "How did the talk go?" I nodded. Not bad. We cleared everything up. Shaoxi shot to his feet, staring at me in disbelief. You too, you really agreed. I nodded. Of course we agreed, with Shen Hanzhou possessing memories of his past life. There was no need for further words between us. Even if I did nothing in this lifetime, the fact remained that Jiang Chan and hundreds of lives had once stood between us. This was for the best. It spared us a lot of unnecessary talk. Shaoxi stepped before me, searching my face for even a trace of mockery, but there was none. His voice grew hoarse. What about me? What does that make me? I fought the urge to let my lips curl upward, turning my back so I wouldn't have to look at him. It makes me pity you. Behind me. Silence fell instantly. I grew slightly concerned. Had I really made him cry? I'd inevitably face Nanny when scolding for bullying him. But before I could turn back, a warm body pressed against mine. On the palace floor. Two shadows overlapped, entangled yet caressing. Then why won't you pity me for the rest of my life? At the start of my rebirth, I'd considered simply becoming a proper young lady like Jiang Yan, a good person, with my past lives' memories. I could surely avoid all the mistakes of my former existence. But I didn't. I chose another path. Perhaps even then, I already knew the answer. Extra Chapter 1. Xiaoxi had been in a good mood lately, except for the occasional sight of Shen Hanzhou, and this man had the nerve to keep showing up around him. Not that he was actually seeking Xiaoxi, was after Jiang Yan Yue, which only made Xiaoxi more irritated. But he couldn't let it show too obviously. Wouldn't that make him seem petty? Though Xiaoxi believed that if Jiang Yan Yue had any sense, she wouldn't have set her sights on Shen Hanzhou. Just in looks alone, he surpassed him by a mile. What's more, Shen Hanzhou seemed to have once played the field between her and her sister, driving a wedge between them. A man like that was even less worthy of trust. But then again, he was someone she'd loved in her youth. The weight he held in her heart was different from anyone else's. Otherwise, why would she even call out his name in her dreams? But Shen Hanzhou was a man of some talent, and his actions were beyond reproach. Even if she wanted to pick a fight, she couldn't find a reason. Thinking about it this way, she couldn't help but feel stifled for days on end. Thus, this jar of aged vinegar needed to be stirred up every so often. Finally, one day, Jiang Yan Yue couldn't take it anymore and hurled a jade pillow at him. If you mention Shen Hanzhou again, you can just go be with him. Xiao Zhizhi, realizing had provoked her, hurried to appease her, but as he tried to soothe her, he ended up soothing his own grievances instead. When you were in your fief, whenever you felt down, you'd get yourself dead drunk. After drinking, you'd just stare blankly at me and then call out Shen Hanzhou's name. And that day at the inn you promised to tell me, but instead you went straight to him afterward, even calling him brother. Every woman I've ever loved has cast me aside like a worn-out shoe. What's the point of sitting on this throne I fought so hard to claim? Jiang Yan Yue's frown deepened. But the more she listened, the more amused she became. Who says I cast you aside like a worn-out shoe? Could it be you have other women you favor? Xiaoxi dared not speak. He knew all too well Jiang Yan Yue's skill at turning the tables. Say another word, and he didn't know how many charges had been pinned with. Had thought today would bring no answers either. Yet, unexpectedly, Jiang Yan Yue flipped him over and pinned him down, sealing his lips with hers. You want to know? I'll tell you slowly. Shall I? Extra Chapter 2. Xiaoxi had a nightmare. In the dream, his fate was grim. He never met Jiang Yan Yue, so his journey was filled with suffering. He couldn't protect anyone. After ascending the throne, he personally slew his old enemies. People cursed him as tyrannical and brutal, yet feared for their own heads. He didn't care. He felt only satisfaction. It was only right that everyone feared him. That way, the people he cared about wouldn't die. After exacting his revenge, he didn't know what to do next, so he wandered the palace grounds day after day, like a ghost trapped within the palace walls. He had seen such people in his childhood. They called them the mad consorts of the cold palace. Xiaoxi felt indifferent now, had lived day by day, perhaps recalling the party. He suddenly heard a familiar song and felt a flicker of emotion. In his youth, cherished by his father and mother, he had been quite mischievous. Only Nanny Wen could tame him. Whenever she sang, he knew it was time for bed. They say before death, one recalls their entire life. Had the Grim Reapers come to claim him, following the melody of that Jiangnan folk tune, he found no Grim Reapers, but instead encountered a woman. Her face was sagging, her eyes dull. Yet it was clear she had once been a beauty in her youth. She knew this song. Xiaoxi went to listen to her sing every day. That filthy, Cramped palace chamber became the only place in the entire palace where he felt at ease. When the woman learned his identity, she showed neither surprise nor fear. Only then did he realize they were kindred spirits. Live day by day, Xiaoji took it upon himself to investigate the woman. Tisk tsk tsk. How wicked. It's a long story. Yet her smile suddenly burst into his mind again. When he asked how she learned that first so. The woman lowered her head. A faint smile appeared on her usually expressionless face. It was taught to me by someone who was very kind to me when I was a maid. Did she regret it too? Perhaps she would have been happier just staying a little maid. Xiao Zhiping loathed those with venomous hearts above all else. Yet suddenly, he felt a pang of pity for her. His health was failing day by day, no longer able to muster the strength to traverse half the palace to hear her sing. He summoned her to his side. If he were to die suddenly, wouldn't it be comforting to have someone who knew him? But he never imagined she would depart before him. Then again, he had never been able to protect anything. He slowly approached her, carefully wiping the blood from the corner of her lips. Then he closed her eyes, still warm with life. If there is a next life, he whispered, let us be wild geese soaring through the heavens. The story ends here. Thank you for watching. The next chapter promises even greater excitement.